going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking About Baseball. Today, I will be doing my third baseman rankings as the 7th day of the 12 Days of Christmas rankings. You should go watch the first 6 videos after or before you watch this one. But anyway, let's get into it with number 34, and that is Carter Kieboom of the Nationals. Kieboom's not really all that great of a player in my opinion. His bat never goes boom like his last name, and he's on a Nationals team that is very much rebuilding right now and will be continuing to rebuild for quite a while, as their roster right now is not looking very good. At number 33, I have Abraham Toro of the Athletics. He's been traded multiple times from the Astros to the Mariners to the Brewers, and this offseason to the Athletics, and he's going to be bringing a ton of value, I'm sure, to the Athletics, which is not true whatsoever. He's a fine defensive third baseman, but after a breakout season with the Astros, his bat has never been the same. And of course, now that he's on the Athletics, he's clearly not going to be very good. At number 32, I have Brett Baty from the Mets. I think that he can be really solid in the future, but last year his hitting and defense looked absolutely atrocious. I don't really know how much better his defense is going to get, but his hitting definitely needs to improve if he wants to keep a spot on the Mets starting lineup. At number 31, I have Matt Vierling from the Tigers. He's moving to third base from the outfield. Not quite as much as the outfield, but he's more of just a guy who hits left-handed pitchers more, not so much right-handed pitchers, so he's more of a platoon. He's more of a platoon bat in my opinion, and not really so much a starter, and that's why he's ranked this low. At number 30, I have Ramon Urias of the Orioles. I don't really think he's all that good in my opinion. Some people think he's pretty solid, but I do not. His defense isn't all that great, his contact is fine, and he has absolutely no power, and I don't think he should be starting on an Orioles team that has a very crowded infield. That should not include him by the time next year starts. At number 29, I have Maikel Garcia from the Royals. He's an absolute defensive mastermind, and he showed that in the last few months that he played in the majors last year. Unfortunately, he didn't play all that long in the majors last year, though, and that's why he's ranked so low at 29. His hitting looks pretty alright, but like I said, he didn't really play long enough in the majors last year to show me that he can really be a really solid player, and that's why he's ranked this low. At number 28, I have Luis Urias from the Mariners. He's their new third baseman after they traded away Eugenio Suarez. He just got signed out of free agency after last year he got traded to the Red Sox. He was looking like he could be a pretty solid bat for the Brewers, but he got injured and then eventually got traded to the Red Sox and had a very disappointing 2023. He's hoping to rebound in 2024, and with a Mariners team that's looking like they could potentially make the playoffs this year, I could see it happen, but I think if they do want to make the playoffs, I really don't think he's the guy that you want to be starting at third. And I would say the same thing about the Blue Jays and Kevin Biggio at number 27. Biggio is another guy, in my opinion, who's just more of a platoon bat. He's not really great against righties or lefties, despite being a left-handed batter. His defense is fine, I guess, but he's more of a guy that I wouldn't really like start. A guy to just come in when my starters need a rest day or whatever. Just definitely a bench bat, in my opinion. At number 26, I have free agent Brian Anderson. The first month or so of last year, he was absolutely outstanding all season, but after that, he was literally terrible the rest of the year, and by the end of the year, he was no longer even on the Brewers roster. Brian Anderson definitely could get a contract in the majors, but I do think it's going to be a prove-it deal, and I don't really know how much money he's going to get, and most likely it's also only going to be a one-year deal after getting released by the Brewers mid-season last year. At number 25, I have his mid-season replacement, Andrew Monasterio. He looked pretty solid in the few games that he played at the end of the year for the last couple of months, but I do think that he will continue to progress as he was just a rookie last year. He pretty much just looks straight up average on the field. His defense is slightly above average, I guess, and his hitting looked pretty good when he first came out, but as the season went on, he started to get a little bit worse. I do think that, like I said, he'll continue to progress throughout the season because he's still very young, and he's on a Brewers team that is kind of retooling, maybe rebuilding, but they've already lost some key pieces and are primed to lose some more. At number 24, I have Nick Madrigal from the Cubs. He was one of the Cubs' best clutch hitters last year. He didn't really have many walk-offs, but he had a lot of big hits that sealed the game for the Cubs. He's not really an awesome defender after getting moved from second to third. His arm got a lot better after he moved to third, though, and I think that definitely increased his game a lot at third base. And his hitting is still pretty solid. I don't think he's ever going to be back to when he was hitting 300 every season, but I do think that he can still be a solid guy who hits around 270 for the Cubs if he does end up being their starting third baseman or even just a platoon bat. At number 23, I have one of the worst contracts in baseball history, and that's Anthony Rendon. After winning the 2019 World Series with the Nationals, he had a pretty solid season with the Angels in the shortened 2020, and since then he has quite literally been absolute garbage. The only reason he's at 23 is because he was so good in the past, and he could go back to that form at any time, but based on how he's played the last few years and all of the injuries through then, I feel like it's very unlikely he does get there, and he'll probably just continue to drop because he's not going to be playing very much better. At number 22, I have DJ LeMahieu from the Yankees. He had a breakout 2019 and a great 2020 that landed him a big contract. And in 2021, he was fine. And since then, he's just been continuing to regress with his batting average, and he just has not looked very good from then. His defense was really never all that great. He's made the move from second base to third after Gleyber Torres took back second base after he played atrociously at short. I think DJ LeMahieu can do much better on the Yankees team. He now has more lineup protection with guys like Juan Soto and hopefully a healthy Aaron Judge, but he definitely needs to start hitting for a higher average if the Yankees and him want to make this contract worth it. At number 21, I have free agent Gio Urshela. He's another guy who I don't really think is a great starting third baseman on your team, but I think that he's one of the best platoon bats in the league. He's a really solid hitter against righties and lefties, and he plays fine defense wherever you put him, and he can play anywhere in the infield and kind of the corner outfield spots, although he's not really great in those. He's also a really solid clutch hitter, as you've seen in the past, and I do think that Gio Urshela could actually get some decent money in free agency from a team that's looking for a good platoon bat just like him. At number 20, I have J.D. Davis of the Giants. He's coming off of a season where he was very wishy-washy. The first half, the Giants were not looking like a very good team, but he was absolutely on fire and almost got voted into the All-Star game. But the last month or so before the All-Star game, he kind of tanked, and that's why he didn't get in. And while the Giants continued to progress all of the second half, except for the very end, he just got worse and worse and worse all year long, and eventually ended up being pretty much a bench/platoon bat for the Giants. I think that if he can just keep up that first half for a whole season, he can be a really solid third baseman, but he's never done that in the past or really gotten close to it either, and that's why I have him at number 20. At number 19, I have Yoán Moncada from the White Sox. In 2019, he really broke out. His hitting was great, and his defense was also amazing, which it still is today. But after the 2020 COVID season, he was diagnosed with COVID that year, and since then, with some back injuries, he's just never looked like the same guy. His hitting has been all over the place, and he just has not been able to find that swing that he had in years like 2018 and 2019. Like I said, his defense is still very much there, and he's a great defensive third baseman, but he needs to get that bat much better if he wants to be a cornerstone of a White Sox team in the future. At number 18, I have yet another free agent, and that is Justin Turner. He's coming off of a career year of a resurgence. He's coming off of an age 36 season where he was absolutely outstanding for the Red Sox, and I think has primed himself for big money for maybe even 2 years despite his older age. The Dodgers finally let him go just because he was so old, and he proved them wrong, having, like I said, a great season with the Red Sox. At number 17, I have Alec Boehm of the Phillies. He's just been getting better and better. When he first came up with the Phillies, he was a very highly touted prospect, but he also played very poorly. His contact was bad, his power was bad, his defense was absolutely horrific, which it still kind of is, and he was just a very arrogant kid. He thought he was just, on top of the world on a Phillies team that really wasn't that good. The Phillies have now brought in their stars and just need their role players like him to perform better, and I think last year was a breakout season for him, but I would like to see him do, really solid for a year, and that would make him go much higher than 17. At number 16, I have mid-season call-up Elly De La Cruz. He was one of the flashiest, if not the flashiest player in all of the league last year. He stole a ton of bases. He hit for the cycle in his first week, and he was just beloved by a lot of baseball fans last year after only getting called up in June, and he missed almost half the season. I think that a full season of Elly De La Cruz will show you a lot about him. At the end of the season last year, he kind of fell off a cliff, but I think he'll be ready and geared up for this year. His main problem currently is he doesn't have all that much contact. He's kind of like a better O'Neal Cruz because he's much faster, but he has a cannon for an arm and a ton of power. He just needs to hit the ball more consistently, and he'll be a top 10 third baseman or a shortstop easily. At number 15, I have the recently traded Eugenio Suarez. After getting traded to the Diamondbacks in a trade where I think the Diamondbacks fleeced the Mariners, I think that he's going to have a really good season there because there's a ton of lineup protection. They just signed Lourdes Gurriel Jr. the other day, and obviously they still have stars like Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and Christian Walker. I think that Eugenio Suarez is a great add to this lineup, and if he's able to even come close to returning to his late 2010s form with the Reds, where he was just absolutely mashing baseballs for the Diamondbacks, I think they're going to be World Series bound yet again, even though they still have a lot of big teams in their way like the Braves and the Dodgers. Speaking of the Dodgers, at number 14, I have Max Muncy of the Dodgers. He's another kind of platoon utility player, but you also have to have him in your lineup every day because of how good of a hitter he is. He can play anywhere around the infield, and I'm sure the Dodgers are fine with putting him wherever because he's pretty much a lock to hit 35 home runs every year, but also his batting average is either slightly below or just barely above 200, and that is definitely a problem for him. He does walk a decent amount, so his on-base percentage is much better than his batting average, and obviously, like I said, he's absolute tanks for the Dodgers and is one of their leading home run getters for the last few years. At number 13, I have Ryan McMahon of the Rockies. Everyone's been waiting for him to break out on offense, but it really just hasn't happened yet. He's been pretty much a career just slightly above average hitter, and that the main reason he's way up here at 13 is because his defense is absolutely nasty. He is one of, if not the best defensive third baseman in all of baseball, and he has already won a few gold gloves. I think that the Coors effect is probably helping his offense, but I don't really know how much because he's still not hitting great, and he's one of the best players on the Rockies team that's been bad for so long now, and it does not look like they're in a place to get any better whatsoever. At number 12, I have Royce Lewis of the Twins. He got moved to third base after they re-signed Carlos Correa and brought him back to play short, but I don't think Royce Lewis will care when he's playing, and neither will the Twins. He only played about half the season last year because he was sidelined with a torn ACL, but he made that half of a season count. He hit a ton of grand slams in that time and was also a huge anchor on this postseason team. Despite being young, he's the hype man in Minnesota, and if he can keep his play up from that half season and turn it into a full season next year, he will be a monster in the MLB and one of the best third basemen, but currently he has not quite done that, so he's at number 12. At number 11, I have the power-hitting Jake Burger from the Marlins. He got traded to them at this year's trade deadline from the White Sox, which is still a perplexing trade to me. I don't know why the White Sox would want to trade him because he's just such a great hitter. He brought the Marlins. He was an integral part of. He was a big part of the Marlins' playoff push at the end of the year, and they did end up making it large part into him, but then they got swept in the first round by the division rival Phillies. I think the Marlins are going to get ready this offseason for another deep playoff run and hopefully be able to make it farther this year, even though they are going to be without star pitcher Sandy Alcantara for most likely the entire season. At number 10, I have Josh Jung of the Rangers. He's coming off of his rookie season, and he's already at number 10. He looked absolutely outstanding last year. There's definitely a few things he could fix, but in the postseason, he clutched up, and he was ready for the moment, despite, like I said, being a rookie. He did get a late season injury, but that, like I said, that did not stop him in the postseason. And I think that if he can raise his contact, hitting, and defense a little bit, he could be much higher because currently they're all just pretty much above average. At number 9, I have Ke'Bryan Hayes of the Pirates. He's another guy who hasn't really had his huge breakout season on offense, but he's still been really solid and above average on offense for all of the years he's been in the league since 2020. His defense has nothing to be worked on. He is one of the best defensive third basemen in the league, and I think that he could be the best defensive player in the league. And I'm not going to be saying that too many more times with the guys that are up top here. I think Ke'Bryan Hayes is a star on this Pirates team, and if they really want to make a good playoff run, he's definitely going to need to be on the team, but they also need a lot more pieces if they want to do that. At number 8, I have free agent Matt Chapman. I think he could go to my Chicago Cubs, and I would love if they did that, but I would also much rather they spend money on Cody Bellinger. But anyway, Matt Chapman is also a great defensive third baseman. He's been much worse ever since he left the large foul ground. He has not been quite the same guy, but he's still been okay on offense, although he's coming off of a very much bad year, and he's still been very much above average on defense, just not the same platinum gold glove winner that he used to be. I think that he's still a really solid guy, and everyone's just waiting on him to have a breakout monster offensive season, which just has not happened yet, but I do think that he definitely could do that and stop being just slightly above average. At number 7, I have Isaac Paredes of the Rays. He's coming off of a great 30 home run season for the Rays after the Tigers and actually the Cubs gave up on him. He was traded at the 2017 deadline from the Cubs to the Tigers, and then eventually traded from the Tigers to the Rays. And I think now that he is one of the best third basemen in the league, he's going to need to get paid by the Rays or probably just leave because like everyone knows, the Rays pay absolutely nobody and of course none of their stars. But Isaac Paredes is one of the best hitters on that team now that Wander Franco is gone. And I think that he's going to have to anchor this team more because, like I said, Wander Franco is off of the roster most likely for either the rest of his life or however long it's going to be. I'm not really sure yet. But anyway, at number 6, I have Alex Bregman of the Astros. Once again, another guy who really just hasn't had a monster season in a few years, but he's just been very much above average. He's kind of just an average defensive third baseman, but he's one of the best bats in the Houston lineup that has made the championship series every year since 2016, which is just absolutely crazy. That's a lot of time to make it back to back to back. And I think that they will most likely continue to make it there, but there's also a lot of powerhouses forming in the AL, like the Orioles, Rangers, Astros obviously is one of them, and there's definitely a couple more in the East and West, but of course not in the Central because all of those teams pretty much suck. At number 5, I have Rafael Devers of the Red Sox. He's a great power hitter. His defense leaves a lot to be desired and definitely needs to be worked on. And he's also not really all that great against left-handed pitching, but when you're a right-handed pitcher, you're definitely scared when you see Rafael Devers coming up to the plate. He mashes right-handed pitchers, and we just need to see him do better against lefties and get his defense much better, because I do think that he could definitely move up, probably only one spot though, because of the guys that are above him. At number 4, I have Manny Machado. He's coming off of a very big down season for the Padres. He was much better by the end of the season, and that's why he's not really too. It was a very disappointing Padres team, and definitely a very disappointing season for him. And if he wants the Padres to make the playoffs next year, after the departure of Juan Soto, he's going to need to play much better than he did last year. And I do think he'll be able to do that with them, because he's shown that he can be a great player for them in years like 2020 through 2022. He just needs to return back to that after he got his huge extension before last season. Beginning the top 3, I have Austin Riley from the Braves. This might be a little bit low for him, but personally, I think that since the top 2 guys have just been great third basemen for so long, and Austin Riley, I say only, but it is 3 years of just being amazing. His defense is also pretty horrible at third base. He's gotten much better since then and made some great defensive plays in the playoffs, mainly throwing out Bryce Harper at first to end the game in the division series. But I do think that his bat will continue to progress, and I'm still waiting for a 40 home run season from them, which technically this number 2 guy has never done, and that guy is Jose Ramirez. He's been just absolutely outstanding for the Guardians for a long time now, because he has a great track record, and he's been a great player for them even since 2016 when they made the playoffs as the Indians. He's been there the whole time and is the only player pretty much that Cleveland has ever paid big money when they extended him before 2022. I think that he's just going to be the star of the Indians team. He's the star of this Guardians team, and he's just going to continue to be that star for a very, very, very long time. And we just need to see if they can actually get some other players around him, which, like I said, since they spend absolutely no money, is probably never going to happen. Finally, at number 1, I have Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals. He's coming off of a down year on an atrocious Cardinals team, but I think that the Cardinals, now that they've gotten a lot of pitching this offseason, are going to be much better. Even though him and Goldschmidt, their 2 stars, are definitely aging, I think that Nolan Arenado will return to form next year. His defense looked a lot worse, but I do think he's still one of the best, if not the best defensive third baseman in the league, and he just needs to return back to the plays that he's made in years past. His bat also slightly declined last year, and you could say it's because of age, but he's really not all that old, and I think that he'll be just fine if he's able to get that bat and defense back on track and be a great player once again on the Cardinals team that, unfortunately for me as a Cubs fan, I think is going to be pretty good next year. Anyway, that was the end of my third base rankings. That was day 7 of the 12 days of Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and we are on the road to 200 by Christmas. I hope we make it.